A prolonged housing crisis in China upending long-held values such as the belief in the need to own property. And that could spell trouble for authorities keen to reduce their housing inventories.
The Chinese regime does not want us to know what's going on, and they're going to continue to restrict information to us.
Young people in China are increasingly flocking to poorer regions in search of rock-bottom housing as the property slump continues.
Their factories are closing all over China because we're not taking their product. We don't want their product.
The U.S. market is such a big market that it's difficult to replace. Most of our profits come from the U.S. market, so without that market, it would be difficult for us.
These export-oriented factories, especially those in the southern portion of the country, they have been closing. They've been in trouble for a couple of years now, and they certainly are at a point where they can't continue.
And I don't want this to happen, but I know that China is doing very poorly right now. I just saw some reports coming out, and I don't want that to happen to China.
Right now, China is facing what might be its most severe economic challenge in decades. Mortgage boycotts are spreading like wildfire. Construction sites stand abandoned. Banks are restricting withdrawals. The real estate sector, which once powered nearly a third of China's entire economy, is imploding, and nobody seems to know how to stop it. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening on the ground. Imagine spending your life savings on a home, taking out a massive mortgage, and then nothing happens. No construction, no updates, just empty promises. That's the reality for millions of Chinese families today, and they've had enough. To understand how we got here, we need to step back and look at how the Chinese economy was built. For decades, the CCP followed a simple formula: build more, grow more. Real estate became the backbone of China's economic miracle. It wasn't just about having a place to live, it was about financial security, social status, and even marriage prospects. Young Chinese men often can't find a spouse without owning property. Parents pour their life savings into helping their children buy homes, and many middle-class families own multiple properties as investments because they don't trust other financial options. The result? An astounding 70% of Chinese household wealth is tied up in real estate. All this worked brilliantly when prices only went up. Developers took massive loans to build more. Local governments sold land to raise revenue. Banks handed out mortgages like candy. Everyone was making money until they weren't. By 2022, cracks started appearing. Evergrande, once China's largest developer, revealed it was drowning in debt. More than $300 billion of debt. But here's the shocking part. Evergrande wasn't the exception. It was the rule. The entire sector was operating like a massive Ponzi scheme. So let me break down how this worked. Developers would lease land from local governments, then pre-sell apartments before construction even began. Buyers would pay the full price or take out mortgages for homes that existed only on paper. But instead of using that money to build the promised homes, developers would use it to buy more land and sell more unbuilt apartments. It was a vicious cycle that could only continue as long as new buyers kept coming in. And when those buyers dried up, the music stopped. By early 2024, over 400 million square meters of housing sat empty across China, enough to cover 6 Manhattans. Worse yet, millions of pre-sold homes were left half-built when developers ran out of cash. The turning point came in July, when home buyers in central China published an open letter announcing they would stop paying their mortgages until construction resumed. It was a bold move in a country where dissent is rarely tolerated. But desperation breeds courage. Within days, the boycott spread to dozens of projects. By the end of the month, home buyers in more than 300 developments across 91 cities had joined the protest. This was not just a financial decision, it was an act of defiance against a system that had failed them. One 42-year-old man from Zhengzhou told reporters, "We're not refusing to pay the mortgage because we don't want to. We simply can't afford to pay for both rent and a mortgage on a home that doesn't exist." The CCP is frantically trying to scrub these protests from social media. Videos of demonstrations are deleted within hours, but the movement keeps growing. And it's not just home buyers anymore. As the real estate sector wobbled, another crisis emerged. Small regional banks started restricting withdrawals. In Henan province, thousands of depositors found their accounts completely frozen without warning. When they gathered to protest outside bank branches, they were met with violence from plainclothes security personnel. Banks had been funneling deposits into risky real estate projects through shadowy investment vehicles. When those investments collapsed, so did the bank's ability to honor withdrawals. One viral video showed an elderly woman kneeling before bank officials, begging to access her life savings of 420,000 won, about $60,000. She was told to come back next week, the same answer she had been given for months. In 2024, Chinese authorities have merged or taken over nearly 300 small banks, a record pace of consolidation that speaks to the scale of the problem. But these bailouts only address the symptoms, not the disease. The modern banking system works on trust. When that trust erodes, the consequences can be catastrophic. If Chinese citizens lose faith in their banking system, we could see capital flight, bank runs, and financial contagion that would make the 2008 crisis look minor by comparison. What makes China's situation particularly dangerous is that it's battling multiple economic crises simultaneously. While the US and Europe struggle with inflation, China faces the opposite problem: deflation. Prices are falling across the board. In 2024, China's producer price index has declined for 16 consecutive months. Consumer prices are barely growing. Now, this might sound like good news for shoppers, but economics call deflation economic poison for a reason. You see, when prices fall consistently, consumers delay purchases. Businesses reduce investment, and the entire economy grinds to a halt. Why would you buy something today if next week it's going to be cheaper? Japan experienced this lost decade in the 1990s, and its economy never fully recovered. The Chinese government has thrown everything at this problem: tax cuts, infrastructure spending, monetary easing. But nothing seems to be working. The deflationary cycle continues, dragging down growth and eroding confidence. Perhaps the most alarming indicator is youth unemployment. In urban areas, nearly 20% of young people can't find work, and that's using China's own heavily massaged statistics. The real number is likely much higher than 20%. A record 11.8 million college graduates entered the job market in 2024, only to find their degrees virtually worthless. Many are settling for jobs that pay less than what migrant workers earn. Others have given up entirely, retreating to their parents' homes in a phenomenon called lying flat, a passive resistance against a system that promised prosperity but delivered precarity. One 24-year-old graduate with a master's degree in engineering told me he's been job hunting for 9 months. He's applied to over 200 positions, received just 3 interviews. He said, "My parents spent their life savings on my education. Now I can't even find a job that pays enough to cover my basic expenses." This youth unemployment crisis isn't just an economic problem, it's a political powder keg. Young people with nothing to lose and no stake in the system are precisely the demographic that authoritarian regimes fear most. For decades, China could rely on its export machine to power through domestic difficulties, but of course, that engine is spluttering too. Global demand for Chinese goods is weakening. Rising labor costs have eroded China's competitive advantage, and geopolitical tensions are prompting many international companies to reduce their dependence on Chinese manufacturing. China's exports fell by 4.6% in the first half of 2024 compared to the same period last year, and that's serious. Factories that once hummed with activity now sit idle. Workers are being laid off or seeing their hours cut, and the dominoes continue to fall. One factory owner in Guangdong province, who previously employed 200 workers, now has just 50. He said, "I've been in business for 22 years. This is the worst I've ever seen it. Orders are going down 70%. I'm losing money every month, but I keep going because I don't know what else to do." Underlying all these immediate crises is a demographic time bomb that's been ticking for years. China's working-age population peaked in 2011 and has been declining ever since. Thanks to the one-child policy, China is aging faster than any society in history. By 2025, over 300 million Chinese citizens will be over 60, more than the entire population of the United States. Yet, China lacks the social safety net to support this silver tsunami. Most elderly Chinese rely on their children for financial support, but with the economy faltering, that support is becoming increasingly tenuous. One 68-year-old retiree in Wuhan said his pension covers barely a third of his monthly expenses. His son, who lost his job in the real estate sector, can no longer help. "I worked for 40 years, he said. "I thought I would have a comfortable retirement. Now I'm selling vegetables at the market just to survive." The CCP faces an impossible dilemma. If they bail out developers and banks, they reward reckless behavior and create moral hazard. If they don't, they risk social unrest as millions lose their homes and savings. So far, they've chosen a middle path, providing just enough support to prevent complete collapse while allowing some pain to flow through the system. But this strategy is becoming less tenable as this crisis deepens. President Xi Jinping has staked his legitimacy on delivering prosperity. The implicit bargain he offers Chinese citizens is simple: accept political control in exchange for economic opportunity. But what happens when that bargain breaks down? China's economic model has reached its limits. The debt-fueled, construction-driven growth of the past decades is no longer sustainable. The transition to a consumption-driven economy has stalled, and the demographic headwinds are only getting stronger. The question is whether this crisis will trigger political change. History suggests that economic hardship often leads to political instability. The Arab Spring began with food price protests. The collapse of the Soviet Union was preceded by economic stagnation. Even the Chinese Communist Party itself came to power during a period of economic chaos. Will China follow this historical pattern? It's impossible to say. The CCP maintains tight control over information, over security forces, and virtually all aspects of Chinese society. But cracks are appearing. The mortgage boycotts, bank protests, and youth discontent are symptoms of a deeper malaise, a loss of faith in the system itself. One thing is certain: China's economic challenges will reverberate around the world. Supply chains will be disrupted, financial markets will be volatile, and geopolitical tensions will likely intensify as the CCP look for external enemies to blame for domestic problems. For a generation of Chinese who have only known economic growth and increasing prosperity, this downturn is more than a financial setback. It's an identity crisis. The Chinese dream was built on the promise that each generation would be better off than the last. That promise now rings hollow for millions. We hope you found this interesting. Would love to read your comments on this story. Please subscribe to the Epic Economist channel, and thank you very much for watching.